Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to prep a model for painting. Prepping a model is very important because your model has to have a smooth finish in order to be presentable at a show. A good paint job only happens when there's a good foundation, so prepping is the first step to creating a beautiful show quality model. I have already uploaded a tutorial on how to strip a model, so go check that out in case you missed it. Also in case your model needs to be stripped before he is prepped. Prepping is generally the second step in customizing, but that's only if you have to strip your model first. However, if you don't need to strip your model, then you can go ahead and begin prepping. Okay, so first we will start off with things you will need, and to begin, you will need a model, some soap, some water, and some sandpaper. Extreme cases, you may need epoxy, but generally it's not needed. So the first thing you want to do is to sand down any bumps on the model. Sometimes you can look at regular run models, and a lot of times they will have these little bumps in their paint, but those are considered flaws, so you want to sand those down with sandpaper and make them smooth again. You're going to look at the seams, and seams are where the model was glued together, but most of this was sanded down at the factory, but most models still have a very visible seam. You can find these lines down the back, the face, the belly, along the legs, the chest, around the ears, and near or on the mane and tail. The next thing to look for is markings. I'm not really sure about Peter stones because I haven't messed with them too much, but I know for sure on breyer models you can feel sometimes the raised edge between the paint and the white marking. You need to sand this down until it's smooth as well. Breyer uses tape to make their white markings, so they just pull the tape off after the model has been painted, and then you have your white marking, but unfortunately that leaves an edge between the white part and the colored part, and you can feel it. And when you prime your model, you can kind of see it, and it looks like a hair that's stuck in the paint. It's really frustrating. Just sand that smooth too. Now that your model is smooth and seam-free, you will need to give him a bath. Now, before this year, I didn't do this, which is probably bad, but I never had any ill after effects because of it. Just this year, I'm not really sure what happened or anything like that. I think breyer started or changed whatever formula they were using for their sealer after they were finished with the model. Because all of a sudden, with just models released from this year, my primer will no longer stick to them and it bubbles up. There was literally nothing else that could have been wrong. I checked, double checked, triple checked, and that's literally the only thing. So make sure, especially if your model was produced this year, you need to wash him with soap and warm water. Make sure to scrub him really good with your hands to remove any of the oils that may affect the primer. And after that, you need to let him air dry. Okay, so now you want to move on to priming. So now that your model is completely dry, you'll need to prime him. Priming is necessary before painting a model, and if you do not prime your model, the paint will come off super easily, which is not good. Primer is also toxic if inhaled, so this will need to be done outside or in a ventilated area. You will also need to be wearing a mask while you are doing this. You can find primer at Walmart or your local craft store. It's going to be cheaper at Walmart though. The most common brand is Krylon primer, but everyone seems to have bad experiences with it, although I use it. But Rust-Oleum is another primer that works just as good. So each brand is different and has a set of directions on the back. Whether you are inside or outside, you will need to check the temperature and humidity of that area. Generally speaking, you want the temperature between 50 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity should be low and not above 50. Please read the directions, or you could really mess up your model. I'm using Krylon, so I'm following their directions here. You will need to shake the bottle for 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes longer is necessary. It just depends. Your model needs to be completely clean and dry for the primer to take. If your model is still wet from being given a bath, then it will not work. Next, you should test spray a small area on the model to make sure the primer reacts okay. Usually I keep a few of like really old vintage bodies that I test out on. But if the primer goes on smooth, then you're good to go. However, if it is rough or bubbling, there could be a few things wrong. If it's rough, you may be spraying too far away. As for bubbling, sometimes the primer isn't mixed well enough. The weather conditions may be wrong, or there is residue on the model which keeps the primer from sticking. I've been through all of this and there's really no way to tell what it is, but just, process of elimination through the three. You should be a good length from the model, not super far, but not too close either. I think Krylon recommends 6 to 12 inches from whatever you are spraying. If you are too close to the model, the primer will run and you will have more sanding to do after he's dry. So that's not a big deal, but still more work. If you're too far, the primer will dry before it hits the horse and you're going to be left with a rough coating of dust that is going to come off when you touch it. You'll want to spray back and forth and do not stop in one area because this causes the primer to run. You want to overlap each swipe until the model is completely covered. Also, while you're doing this, you should wait at least 1 minute in between layers, that way it has time to dry and doesn't run. Once you have completely sprayed your model, you will need to let him dry for 24 hours. Okay, so now that your model is completely dry, you will need to lightly sand him in rough areas. This will make sure that his finish is super smooth and ready to go. So if you notice areas where your primer has dripped, you will need to sand that smooth as well. Once this is done, you may want to run him under some water to get the primer dust off and then let him dry again. So after all of this is finished, you are ready to start painting. Okay, so I hope this helped you guys out with prepping and priming. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below or DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to help you with any questions you may have, and as always, it would be awesome if you subscribed and left a comment and a like and all that good stuff. I love to hear what you have to say and what suggestions you have. I will be uploading a ton of tutorial videos, and I already have a few up, so make sure to check those out.